Hello and welcome to the preview show edition of the Blue Monday podcast, a 3 times weekly show looking into all things Ipswich Town. I'm your host, Richard Woodward, and I have a cornucopia, a Christmas cornucopia of football expertise. I have the brilliant Harry from Bath, and I have the well-travelled Benjamin Bloom. Hello, gentlemen. Who wants to go first? Harry, after you. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Great, thank you. All very good. Life great in the world of retailing and on the book-selling side of things. Head down, take money, but we've had plenty of exciting things on the Ipswich front to keep us distracted.
Absolutely. Ben, welcome to the preview show again. I mean, it is your show, let's be honest.
I'm going to keep my powder dry. I'm going to linger in the corner and let you guys do your thing. But I have been voyeuristically looking at a lot of Sheffield United the past couple of months, so I may be able to add a bit when we get onto that, Rich.
You've 2 games in the last 3 weeks, Sheffield United, is that right?
I think I've seen them 4 times in the past couple of months. When we did the David Johnson interview, that was at Sheffield United. Then I was at the Steel City Derby, and then Brentford. I saw them beat Brentford, and I saw them last week lose to West Brom, which felt like a very significant barometer of where they are at the moment.
Nice.
Yeah.
This kind of feels like, you know this because you're in schools, but when there's like an inspector sat at the back of the class,
I'll go on with you.
Or
You just do your thing.
Or it's like someone else is driving your car, and it's like, oh no, you shouldn't change gear there. Oh, don't like that. So I'll do my best to keep things nice.
I'm on your side. I'm not an Ofsted inspector, honestly.
Let's
You're going to get outstanding from me. That's my mother.
No.
There you go.
God bless you. God bless you. Let's chat Wigan, shall we? We did that on the Sunday show. Obviously, a good listen to that. Harry, any thoughts from you on Wigan? And obviously, quite a symbolic moment. That's why the pink top is back, by the way.
Yes. It's just a couple of minor thoughts of it, just reflecting on it now. 2 things which occurred to me. One, the win balanced out the injustice of Bristol City, just as the Swansea win balanced out the injustice of Rotherham. Injustice is used in a very loose term because, but I just felt it was probably a game. I don't, from just reading the reports and Ben's memorable match report in the car afterwards. It was a game of football would occasionally break out. It was like as if it was being played on the deck of a North Sea platform, to be honest. Great fun. But it was a great win. It was a huge win, and it gives us hope. You suddenly think, right, there's a glimmer there. We can, one of the tunnels is under construction, let's just say. Fantastic. We'll see, that differential is back to something that can be spliced in January if and when the cavalry come in.
Yeah, which Lambert said isn't much, didn't he, today in his press conference? So he's going to be positive, obviously. But
the other only small thing, there was a photograph of Luke Chambers at full time. It was a portrait format one of him standing there with the rain coming down, absolutely covered in mud, screaming to the North Stand. And if Planet Blue are listening, just sell it. Frame it and start selling it. We'll all buy one. It was a fantastic image. It's just to find the warrior that we have at the heart of our defence. Yeah,
absolutely right.
There we go.
Yeah, and I think Joe tweeted that, didn't he? So I might go and find that again. But I think we discussed it on Sunday, Ben. It's kind of more symbolic and more a bit of a positive step forward and an endorsement for Lambert with quite a run of games coming up now.
And context is king, isn't it? Ask me in 6 games about the Wigan win, because remember we had this with Swansea. Was this just a madcap, ridiculous flash in the pan? Yes, it was. Let's see where we are when we've played Millwall at home, when we played Rotherham at home in the middle of January.
Yeah. And we've got questions about points and wins and what's good over the coming days and the week or so. We'll come back to that, but. It's going to be a tough run, but I think as long as we're in contention in January, I think that's all we can hope for. A couple of bits of news and bits and pieces you wanted to pick up, Harry. The first is the statue of Kevin Beattie, the the initiative that was kicked off earlier this week on the anniversary or his birthday, wasn't it? What's your thoughts on that?
Just my sixpence worth on it. I think it is appropriate that he gets a statue. There's lots of different discussions going on, and I wouldn't not disagreeing with anyone. I think it's sort of coming to a consensus on what's best. My sixpence worth is that I think a statue is appropriate because whereas a lot of the players of that era were admired, my sense is that Kevin was he was loved in a slightly different way to the other players. There was something about him in terms of his ability, and something in terms of with him in terms of the affection and the bond he had with the supporters that was just at a slightly accentuated level. And I guess the other thing I think often for a lot of the other players, Ipswich was a huge part of their lives, and it meant a lot to them in that era. I think for Kevin Beattie, it was his life. It defined him in a way it didn't any of the other players of that era, and it sort of gave him a raison d'être in many ways above a lot of the other sort of legends that we had then. And for that reason, I think it's shades of grey. To me, a statue it does make sense. What it costs is what it costs. Given the amount of money swilling around in the wider game now, I'm actually comfortable with the amount of money. If we can raise it, it would be fantastic. But I know it has raised lots of different views from lots of different people. So I fully respect them all. But
I mean that's an interesting thought that I hadn't heard so far, and there was quite an interesting contribution on Twitter by Cobble Massive today, kind of saying that you can. It's all very well having a criticism in Twitter. Everyone's kind of got their opinion now, and sometimes there's a right place to have a debate, and sometimes there just isn't. And if it's not your thing, then don't worry about it. And we'll see how it kind of pans out. There's, I think they're 10% of the way there. So, but yeah, an interesting insight there. Thank you for that, Harry. And we'll see how that gets on. Another Ipswich Town legend who was in the news on Thursday, which is secret spoiler alert today when we're recording this. Russell Osmond was the next of the kind of ITFC alumni that made the trip to Playford Road. Yet I tweeted him to see if I could get some insights, and he was very keeping his cards close to his chest. But again, Lambert kind of doing the right things, gents. There, Ben.
And Harry, Russell has been very, very critical, hasn't he, of the current regime?
Yeah, he hasn't kept his powder dry at all. He's been very honest, frank, but he is also incredibly insightful. And he's nailed with a lot of his discussions about the way the season has panned out, the decisions that were made. You just find yourself thinking, he wasn't afraid to say it before the truth sort of became self-evident as the early part of the season unravelled. My extra slant on it in a way would be the fact that he's based in the West Country. He's been several times now to talk to the Southwest supporters branch, and his tactical knowledge is phenomenal, especially when it comes to the to the back line. I remember him once talking about Tommy Smith and saying about how left-footed he was and the way teams will exploit that. Now, as fans, we don't always see those tactical insights, but once Russell had said that, and there's no criticism of Tommy because he did so much for the club in his time with us, but you could see once you had that little insight, it was a little thunderbolt going off in your head thinking, and then as you watched games you could see how players
Steve McLaren, Chris Martin, Portman Road, there you go.
Chris Martin was the one straight away. He knew he had him in his pocket every time when he felt it as if he did. Russell is capable of doing that, and that's why players with that level of tactical insight, Russell spending a couple of half an hour with Pennington, for example, what does that mean? There was a photo, was it George Burley was chatting to Miles Kenlock, I think, in the earlier visit. I mean, what could that mean for Miles Kenlock, having a player like Burley coming along? All that knowledge and wisdom of that specialist position, as a full-back position, being able to share that with him and that ongoing dialogue that they can have together. The other small thing about Russell to add was when he came to the last time he spoke to the Southwest group, he brought his UEFA Cup medal along, and let's just say it was like
old thing. Get on the front of Inside Paper magazine.
No, it was the Ark of the Covenant being passed around. We were all looking like, oh, it's gold, it shines, it gleams. Can we touch it? It was so funny. We were all reduced to being 8-year-olds there and then. It was great fun. It really was. No, great man, Russell. Love him to bits. And the great thing is to say he's not afraid to say it as he sees it, and invariably he's right. Yeah.
And good old Lambert. I'm a big fan of this kind of stuff. And again, Twitter's kind of had its saying its thoughts on whether that's kind of a bit contrived or what have you. But I'm big on kind of embracing our history rather than hiding it. And not everyone has played alongside Pele, albeit it wasn't in real life. So there's one.
But Rich, Russell Osmond's extremely respected, and now he's been invited. The likelihood of him, criticising things on Twitter now reduces. It's just I totally agree with you. It's just how can it not be a positive?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, that, Ben, tapping into knowledge is always a good thing, but also trying to bring people back on side, because things haven't gone particularly well for us over the last decade or so, particularly off the pitch. Treatment of ex-pros, there's definitely players who've come out and talked about that, so it's about time they tried to do something about it.
Yeah. Linking into talking about Sheffield United, Phil from TWTD in today's interview asked a question about should we be modelling ourselves going forward on the Sheffield United model, which is a team doing their absolute best with little resources. And Lambert, again, echoing everything we've just talked about, said, no, you want to have your own identity. Don't just do it the way they're doing it. Let's do it the way we want to do it, and we will find that way for ourselves. And I just, again, that it all chimes. The way he was talking about watching the Bobby Robson video or DVD, the film. Yeah. It's not just cliched. A lot of managers say, "Oh, I'm all about the future. We can't do anything about the past." Lambert respects the DNA of the past because he recognises there will be patterns and echoes of that, which we can then mirror forward into whatever the next chapter happens to be. Yeah. And I think as fans, that's something as fans we can all see as well.
I was going to say, we've been around, and our families or whoever have been watching Town for decades before us have been coming up through this kind of stuff. So this is in our DNA. This is what, as fans, we tap into and come back to, and we're all sentimental as well. So if Lambert gets it, which is the antithesis of Mick, let's be honest, who I think was it him or Keeney said I'd rip down those pictures in the hallway if I could. I think it's a good one. I think it's good.
Rich, if I could just come in on that comment. Harry, he's being clever, but we should obviously model ourselves on what Sheffield United have done.
Nothing wrong with being in the top six, is there, gents? No.
Right, playing lovely football and, selling one player and bringing in three good ones that we're about to talk about, Rich.
Yeah. Well, Majorton talks about the mythical Ipswich way, so maybe there's something to be...
I think Big Sam on the West Ham way was even funnier, wasn't it? But there you go.
And the Everton way as well. Well, let's go to Sheffield United. Or Harry, have you got one more thing there? No.
I was just going to say, I remember being on the West Ham forums when Sam Allardyce was there. I think we played them. It was one of the very early blogs I did for TWTD. It was, and West Ham fans know their football. They really know their football. And these long diagonal balls from the halfway line, they were causing nervous breakdowns in the stand. They just simply refused to accept it. It was so funny. Anyway, that's moving on.
If not a little impractical, but hey, Sheffield United then, gents, a team that you've seen quite a lot of, Ben. I've not seen too much of Sheffield United apart from they're on the telly most weeks. And behind me are two shirts from yesteryear when we actually used to be half decent and used to beat Sheffield United. And it was not long ago since they were the Norwich of the North, and that kind of has dissipated a little bit. They've obviously been relegated and had a few years of hardship, but have certainly bounced back. And in Wilder, a manager who again gets the DNA of the club and appears to be building. Again, another positive start like last season, but it started to fall away, and the results have been a bit patchy recently. They're still in the top six, but a defeat last time out, which you saw, didn't you, Ben, against West Brom. Is this a good time to be playing Sheffield United, gents?
The defeat against West Brom, Rich, was significant. You say patchy results. I came away from that I know a lot of people don't like Chris Wilder. Genuinely thinking, what else can this guy do? You know, you sell Brooks to Bournemouth. You sign absolutely brilliantly, and we'll go into detail. You bring in Henderson in goal on loan. Egan is your middle of your three centre halves. Norwood is your playmaker. McGoldrick up front for next to nothing. As you say, you start the way you did last year, and if they continue doing this, the parallels with Burley's Ipswich of build, and what David Johnson said, sell, bring in two,
and build
bring
again.
in two, and build will be uncanny. But Harry and I had a chat on the phone the other day, and there's got to be a point where and we were saying, what would Chris Wilder do with the Middlesbrough squad? There's got to be a point where he's onto better things. Would be my view.
And there's one of the games that possibly typifies for me Sheffield United under Chris Wilder is the Sheffield Wednesday game, the Steel City derby, where they absolutely destroyed them but couldn't score, and they've got this pretty lousy record, is fair to say, against the top teams and in big crunch games, which is exactly how we used to be. And then,
Richard, the key point there, sorry to interrupt, is the coaching and the system are superior to the players.
Right.
Is what's happening there, where they're so beautifully drilled, but Ender Stevens is Ender Stevens at the end of the day. And, David McGoldrick is great, but slightly broken, and Billy Sharp is... and
getting on,
do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly right. It's imperfect. Harry, what are your thoughts? What are the thoughts on Wilder?
My head is on fire listening to what you've just both been talking about, because this is just so echoed in their forums. A couple of things to say. One killer comment one of them said, it feels like the peak of the Wilder era when it could have been the start.
Wow.
And that just absolutely nails it. But the other issue, which just echoing what Ben was saying about the Enda Stevens comment, how many, I may have got this wrong, but one of them said that there is no Premier League experience in that squad.
Right, okay.
If you look at the provenance of the players, I went through it, I double-checked it myself, looking through all the different players, Blackpool, Brentford, Milton Keynes, Coventry, good team, Portsmouth, Birmingham,
Ben Woodburn, you having that?
Ipswich, Ben Woodburn.
Did Stearman play in the Prem?
No, but season-long loan. Maybe he came off the bench once. I think one of them said Chris Basham played for Blackpool a couple of times before he was sold in 2014.
Right, yeah.
That's it. Now you put that up against the six I bang on about, the big six, who all have got. You need players who've played at that level to help you get up to that level. They just don't have them, and it's obvious what is needed. I wrote down one of my notes was it's a club at the same crossroads we reached under making the playoff season. Now the parallel isn't absolute, but they are there. And you just
Harry,
feel with
do you remember Wilder's meltdown at the end of last season about monies? And I dare say you might have a scenario. He wanted Waghorn for $5 million, and he got McGoldrick on a free transfer. So I dare say in January, if looking at the first 11, they are a bit of a hodgepodge of players bought in. So the danger of one of them being sold on is quite low. But they need bodies, and if he doesn't get them, Rich, he's not going to be happy, I don't think.
Yeah, and we will talk about the players. We'll kind of go through, and I don't think we're going to kind of be as detailed maybe as we usually are, but we'll pick out some key ones. Just a thought on Plan B, and again, I was going back to the kind of thought on Burley, and whether Wilder. I cite the Sheffield Wednesday game, but they're drilled and they're passing and they're quick and they're frenetic. But when it doesn't work out, as it didn't against Sheffield Wednesday, because they drew that 0-0 and were held, is there a Plan B? Have you seen anything, Ben, on a Plan B there?
Yeah. So the Plan B came. I mean, you bang on. The Plan B came after the Sheffield Wednesday game, where in the two away games at Brentford and at Reading, Connor Washington is there instead of Billy Sharp, and Mark Duffy is out, and either Lundstrom or Coots play. And what that does is you've taken out a penalty box striker and a number 10, midfield a little bit further back, and you're playing the channels, and Washington's running in. So you give up less energy playing the ball around, and the big thing, I know we all know about it, but if you're not a championship aficionado like the people in this conversation might be, centre halves piling forward, wing backs piling forward. The Plan B is you go direct to Washington, and he runs in behind all match, and then gets replaced by Clark, Sharp, Duffy, whoever later on.
Interesting. Yeah. There's a bit of evolution there, because I would have accused him maybe of being a bit stubborn, maybe as Burley perhaps was.
It's a tweak.
Is it a tweak? Okay, fine.
Yeah. So you're right to say that as well. The system will still be.
It's a compromise, perhaps, rather than a.
But when you're watching Sheffield United, watch Norwood, like Harry says, see how far he is forward, and watch the two wing backs and see how far. The better United are playing, the wing backs are right forward, and Norwood is on the edge of the centre circle. When they're a bit further back, Norwood's in front of the back three, and the wing backs are holding back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
It's interesting. One thing, let's pick up on, because one thing that which then feeds beautifully into that is there is the tiredness theme, because the last three games that I've looked at in detail from what their comments were, the two defeats they had at home defeats against Leeds and West Brom. They bracketed the away win against Reading, where they went for plan A in the other two games, where they basically went after Leeds, went after West Brom, ran out of steam, and once they punched themselves out, then the opposition, West Brom particularly, then just came back at them in the second half. Whereas in the Reading game, the fans were all thinking, the Blades were all watching the game thinking, oh God, the first half has been very listless and quiet. What's going on here? And then in the second half, that's when they unleashed the hounds, and they were able to, the changes in the second half meant that they took the Reading game by the scruff of the neck and went after them, which kind of just to throw that back to you, Ben, I don't know, how does that fit in with your thinking?
Absolutely, and when I saw them at Brentford, that didn't happen because they managed to get the goals in the first half. And I threw a bit of a grenade in on my YouTube video about, do they drop off when because McGoldrick will go off 65, 75 minutes.
Yeah.
Do they drop off then? But I kind of prefer your theory of everybody piling forward and the intensity of it, that they're championship players. They can't do that for 90 minutes. But I agree with what Rich said. If they're not leading at half time, you got a chance.
Yeah, there was a lovely quote from one Blade. He said, "This is the quote. It's a quote within a quote." He said, Sheffield United go out all guns blazing, but fail to score early and thus lose momentum." Then he says, "Anyone is free to cut and paste this report for forthcoming games."
There you go. And in terms of the players' point, just to note, I'm looking at the results here, and obviously the West Brom game is you were at. The difference, Barry scored, I think. Harvey Barnes, did he score the other one, or was it Jay Rodriguez? I forget. Again, Premier League quality in there. That was the difference ultimately, as we've seen maybe a few weeks back as well. Let's start talking players, and I'll get this in. Let's get this out of the way nice and quickly. And a question from Ben King on Twitter. How has McGoldrick stayed so injury-free at Sheffield United? Is it Mick's fault for not knowing when he can and can't be used? Seeing as it's possible, as we've now seen with Sheffield United, to keep him fit for a long period of time. Let's talk McGoldrick. And frankly, he's not broken down yet, so maybe it's the Sheffield air or something like that. Maybe it's the lack of commute. But what's the chat about McGoldrick and this run of games which he's managing to sort out for himself?
Yeah, there was a weary comment on the Sheffield former one, and a Sheffield United fan who had an Ipswich mate. The Ipswich mate said to him, "My Ipswich friend assures me he won't last and he will pick up an injury." And we're all kind of watching our clock, thinking, "Oh, my money's on March," because that's when he famously was against Blackpool. I think we lost him, and I remember thinking it was a March game, and the season kind of it went a bit flaky after that. He does divide opinion. Every forum has a most talked about player. Yeah, and McGoldrick is the most talked about player because they love him, as we all did. And it's always funny looking back at seeing what opposition fans say to see if they see what we saw. So the stuff we all know. A lovely touch and a nice touch and a lovely football brain, but he needs some urgency in this game, especially in front of goal. He rarely loses the ball. His way to pass is always perfect. And this was a lovely line, just going back to what Ben was saying earlier about them not signing Waghorn. McGoldrick is a better footballer than Waghorn, but Waghorn is able to score more goals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
McGoldrick's shooting has always been a bit of a question mark. I'm just interested, Ben. Have you noticed anything different in his style, or because he's still leading the line, isn't he? He's still forward.
Yeah, but Rich, he's got Mark Duffy dribbling up behind him. He's got Billy Sharp ahead of him, goal hanging. He's got two wing backs either side of him. It's a completely different style of football, and there's got to be something in that. He's a little bit more indulged. And remember, Rich, we were playing a 4-2-3-1 last year, and McGoldrick was out wide. Joe Garner was up front, and we very rarely saw him even in the 10 spot. He was always right or left because Mick trusted him a bit more. And when we realised that, as much as I love Waghorn, he couldn't really defend, could he? And he had to go in the spot, and then the whole Mick Selena dynamic. It's in the words of Gary Neville on Mourinho, it's never one thing. I think the distance he's driving is one thing. I think the style of football is something. I think he's had a bloody good rest, is what I would say as well. And he's probably going to play 40 games.
And maybe he's not having to work so hard as well, because there's always something about mixed teams is that they're always going to have to put in a shift, aren't they? So maybe, as you say, he's been more indulged.
Rich, you have to put in a shift under Wilder, but in a different way. You have to press and do attacking stuff, and you'll be applauded rather than Wardy,
back for the corners. Come on, back you come.
Wardy. Do you know what I mean? I sit there in the Pioneer hearing that all the last season. God.
Well, it's nice, Harry, to hear that McGoldrick continues to split opinion.
He really does.
He's fit, isn't he? So he'll play on Saturday.
But Rich, and we've said this for years, if he didn't split opinion like this, he'd be in the Premier League.
Yes.
Because he would be a top-notch, a bit of pace or a bit of finishing. That's a Premier League player.
Yeah. If he had pace, he would be a Premier League regular. They love him. The other thing, as I say, is the finishing. They can't mirror the general clever use of space, the geometry, all of that he does. With his finishing, one of them said his finishing is bizarre for such a class player. They feel he could be more clinical. He's okay until the point of pulling the trigger, which I don't remember. I think to me that was a form thing. I remember when he was on form. In that first season particularly, he was shooting them in from all angles. But I remember his confidence went. Remember the cup replay against Southampton? There was one game, it was on television, I watched it, he burst through and he could have passed the ball across.
He dragged it wide or something.
He went for a shot where there were players free. And I remember thinking, it did make me open a little bank account on his confidence at the time. So
I thought his shooting was, to be fair, I think he had a foot injury, and I think he came back, and that affected. He couldn't put. I think it was Fulham. It might have been when he came back from Fulham and scored in the opening day. I think he did an injury on his foot that meant he couldn't put as much power in the ball. So his shooting from that moment on has always been. He's always been one to keep it low. He very rarely skies it over the bar. And maybe it's a common.
Sorry, I've got to give you an anecdote. What was the name of the snooker hall opposite the football stadium in Ipswich?
Crucible. Oh no, Riley's.
I was playing snooker in Riley's once. I'm not very good at snooker. And there was this young guy who was very, very good. And for some reason, he got a bit chippy with us. And he said, but look, you guys can only pot the balls when they're over the pockets. And that sums up McGoldrick's shooting. Look, he'll do all the brilliant build-up stuff. But if you give him... He only really scores easy chances, 6 yards. And the stupid thing is that if you look at the numbers, Billy Sharp is... superlative in terms of 6 yard box goals. So you would think it would work out, but I guess someone's going to ask us: Is he going to score on? Is he going to score on?
I don't think they have actually, but he's more than likely he's going to, though, isn't he? It's just someone. I didn't start and Dave's predict on the Naked 30 that he'll score twice. And then we'll win 4-2. 4-2.
That's right.
That sounds like a Statman prediction.
Yeah. Where do you want to start with the rest of the squad then, Harry? Should we keep going with McGoldrick's partners?
Let's look up front, because my reckoning is it'll be. Well, we'll see. He could do the Reading model and start with Washington, but let's look at Sharp, because Sharp will feature at some stage, and Sharp would be the one that I would be most worried about, definitely. It's his third time at the club. He was there. He was packed there when Neil Warnock was there in 2004. Then he had a spell when Brian Robson and Kevin Blackwell were managers in the 2007-9 time, and then came back in, what was it, 2015, scored 30 goals I think in their promotion season. Deeply loved by them. 83 goals in 100 and I got the stats on 197 appearances. He's a finisher. Someone has to put the ball in the net, which means for now it's Sharp plus one other for the most part. Just what Ben was saying, a poacher extraordinaire. His finishing is why he has to play. And then one of them, this is high praise. Sharp doesn't need chances at times. Just put him on the pitch and he scores. Goals materialize through his very
the ball
presence.
just is dragged towards it.
Exactly, indeed. Yes, goals will just manifest themselves. It's quite brilliant. He does do the work as well. They say trying as hard as dropping deep. He's never going to beat anyone in a straight foot race. One minor point is the age thing, which we haven't talked about, and this is going back to the crossroads point. Looking at their most creative players, McGoldrick is 31, Sharp is 32, Leon Clark we'll talk about in a minute is 33, and their most creative 33. These are that's their creative fulcrum in the side, and that coupled with what we were saying about Wilder, is why Blades are nervous. They feel that this could, in 2 seasons' time, this has to change purely because
Also,
these
Harry,
guys.
just
Yeah.
very quickly on Sharp, I've just got his
Yeah.
stats up here. Talking
Yeah.
about burnout in games, let's talk about burnout since August. So I'm looking here. August, goal. Right, September, goal, then 2 without a goal, then a little splurge towards the end of October. And then, really, from October, he scored a hat-trick against Wigan, but he's only scored against... I know we come into these bracket of teams, Rich.
No,
he's only scored
These
against...
crap teams.
only scored against Wigan and came on and got the goal against Reading 2 games back. And the other thing I'll say about, so it has dried up a little bit in terms of the frequency of games that he scored in. But Rich, the other thing I'll say is if he doesn't score, it's the classic North Bank Ian Wright comment. Righty, all you do is score. If he doesn't score, you literally won't see him.
Yeah.
He contribute nothing else.
Is he not a bit wily and will he not create space for McGoldrick?
Maybe 5 years ago.
Right,
but
not anymore.
You know, if your defenders are concentrating, no, I would say.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Leon Clark had a really good season last season. But maybe he's getting on now a bit as well.
Yeah, Clark will be. I'd say Clark will be a bench option if he's there. He's on the bus. He's had a hip injury, and he's on the way back. I think he had a golden half season last year.
4 goals in one game always helps Harry.
It does
boost the numbers, doesn't it? Yeah.
Did he score against us? He definitely hit the bar, didn't he, with a crazy volley against us at Bramall Lane last season.
It was Basham that scored against us.
Basham, yeah.
Basham,
but Leon Clark, he did a volley from about 30 yards out.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think to me the way Clark is describing it's how I remember him and talking to Wolves fans who I know. He's of all the players they have, he's probably the best in the air. He's not a target man, but he's got that hold up play dimension. Yeah, athletic striker, exactly that.
Harry, I think Washington has just edged ahead of him since this Plan B thing's come up.
Yeah, that's it. So keep an eye on Clark. He might come on. He wins headers. We don't really do without him. And he has moments of class. There is quality with him, but they feel they've had the best of him now. And going on to Washington, as you say, Ben, Washington, he gives them pace. He can push opposition defences deeper, and he is a threat when he goes in behind the defence. He does offer the in-behind option, though he can drop deep, which annoys them. But there are problems. He's unique. I've never seen a player try. You know what's coming. I've never seen a player try so hard to get a touch of a ball, only to fail time and time again. He needs to show us that he knows where the net is, and that's the issue. They wonder whether he's a backup plan when they're struggling to relieve pressure late on, which actually contradicts what you were saying about the Reading game. But they, and he can at least cause a bit of mayhem, which is, well, there's always that. But we
cause our own mayhem. We don't need anyone else to help us.
They're wondering. Queens Park Rangers fans said this about him as well. Does he flatter to deceive a bit in terms of his finishing? Is he actually a threat?
He's not a threat, Harry. He's not a threat.
Yeah.
He's a nuisance.
Yeah.
Was he the guy? He was QPR Peterborough. He was linked with us, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yes, he
was. What's the name there? Yeah, I'm just.
Yeah, at Peterborough. Yeah.
I'm also just looking.
Mick would have loved him, Rich.
Right, hard worker, presumably. Yeah. I'm just looking. You mentioned Leon Clark. We've also mentioned McGoldrick. We'll mention more. There is a lot of ex-Coventry in here. Sorry, I just noticed it. It's throughout.
Cough klaxon.
Honestly. Hashtag West Midlands. Although it's Coventry City Council that gave me a £60 bus lane violation fine today. So screw you, Coventry. No more money in your city.
The words of Treguard from Nightmare. Ooh, nasty.
Nasty, yeah. Not happy just before Christmas. Anyway, so screw you, Coventry City Council. But yeah, lots of Coventry alumni, including Leon Clark. Should we go to the midfield? Should we talk about more Coventry alumni? Ollie Norwood had a loan spell at Coventry from Man United. Brilliant player. I think we all love Oliver Norwood, don't we?
I'm going to say, and I'll get you two's take on this, Timu Pukki and Ollie Norwood are the 2 best signings in the Championship this season.
Yeah. It really hurts to say it, I really like Pukki. Scores really good goals, doesn't he? But yeah, Norwood's had a bit of a mixed spell at Fulham and Huddersfield, but honestly, he's just turned into the player that I expected him to.
Rich, at Fulham, you've got Tom Cairney, who's the best playmaker we've seen in the Championship for donkey's years ahead of him. And he was used as a sub. I know people come at you with, he's been promoted 2 seasons running. But come on, he was nowhere near the Fulham first team. He was used as a substitute and to give Cairney or Johansson or whoever a rest. But he is the main guy, the most important player in that team. And in terms of importance to his team, probably in the league, the most important player to his team because he's the whole... and he's a bit of a banter footballer as well. He'll do some stuff where you'll just laugh.
Yeah.
You'll be like, "Oh, come on, you're just showing off now." You know, this isn't Soccer Aid or a testimonial or something. But excellent player.
Champagne passing. What do Blades fans have to say about him, Harry?
Yeah, the Hollywood passing has come up all right. There were times there was certainly comments where he does do things to show that he can do them. There were a couple of quotes of that nature in their sum up about him. He's controls the game and opens it up with lots of pinging passes and clever touches. He can create space in midfield and do it effortlessly. He adds creativity. The passes look great when they come off. Not, of course, given his overall position in the squad, and this comes back to the midfield balance question. He's clearly not a big tackler. And needs somebody beside him who's going to do the ugly stuff. So again, you're looking at how they configure the centre. A little team, because we talked about tiredness earlier. A few of them mentioned that he might be a player who can fade and become sloppy. Not that he lacks industry and effort, but it's just he loses a couple of decimal places on his passing radar if he tires in the game. I don't know whether you'd agree with that, but that might be. Looking to the second half of the West Brom game, I'd be interested to see, did he diminish in importance just as West, because in that game Sheffield United for the first half hour completely overwhelmed West Brom. All the West Brom forums as well, I looked at those, everybody was saying the same thing, but then the pendulum swung and once West Brom got to grips with Sheffield United, the pattern of the game did change. Don't know, Ben.
Harry, he just reflects what the team is doing. So like Cole Skews, whether you're playing well or badly, he's still going to keep popping up and intercept stuff and whatnot. Whereas Norwood, if you're playing badly, you won't see him. If you're playing well, all you'll see is him. But Rich, what I'm interested in is Harry always talks about balance on here.
Yeah.
So last year, it was all John Fleck, another Coventry guy for you. He was the main guy, but he seems to have fallen victim to how good Norwood is. So he's like doing the Jermaine Wright kind of glue role, and then we're either going to get, if he does his plan B, we'll get Lundstrom or Coots, who'll just be legs and a bit more passing. If you're a true football fan, you want to see Duffy because. And to be honest, Rich, I think we have more chance of winning if they pile on and attack us.
Yeah.
Because I think they leave space. But I'd be interested what you two think of the balance of those three. I think it's excellent.
Harry's like a cold spring. Go on, Harry.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Fleck. There has been an issue with his form this season. Fleck. Their description of him is the player who makes driving runs, links up play well. But he has been combative, but flying into tackles, bursting forward with or without the ball. They describe him very much as a box-to-box midfielder. Drive, the word drive keeps coming up, but he hasn't. They've no one else. They feel they've no one else like him, and in a way, the sense from listening to what Blades were saying was that Fleck and Norwood actually complemented each other, whereas Coots. On the other hand, when Coots and Norwood are together, they're too similar. At the sense of them both being a little bit static. Now, Coots, to be fair, is a very good player, but he had that injury against Burton last November, and they still think he hasn't quite got back to his levels before that. It was a serious injury, and they feel he still needs to build form and confidence. But Coots and Norwood they don't like, definitely. They feel that they're too similar. It lacks, going back to the balance where they don't complement each other. They're static. It doesn't push. It doesn't take play forward. Duffy, on the other hand, who is more advanced, he would be in a 3-4-1-2, if you could call it that. He would be the one in behind the two strikers. He's I think he was a right winger originally. Played for Birmingham. And he's very good at getting into great areas. He's very clever. The only one who looks like creating something. And interestingly, a lot of Sheffield fans were saying he was the player when he's in form. He's the one who takes them 15 yards further forward up the field. But he doesn't. Again, going back to this pace thing we talked about as well. They don't have a lot of pace in the team, and Duffy is another one who well, he's 34 or 33, whatever. That epitomizes that as well. But he does find pockets of pace where he can create and make big chances. Listening to what they were saying, to me, Norwood, Fleck, and Duffy is Plan A. Coots then would be somebody that you would mix in. Lundstrom is one. They see him very much as a fringe player who offers physicality, and he stops. There's a lovely phrase they said. He's very good against playing against weaker opponents. He's very good, and he stops teams siding through the midfield. So he would almost be like the tackler, the
stopper
player in midfield, the stopper in midfield. There was one lovely thing they said about him. We shouldn't really smile at this. I have a soft spot for Lundstrom after he put Jack Grealish 6 foot under in September.
Him and every other club in the country.
Yeah. That's not a good thing.
Jack really Grealish has been fouled 25 times since the start of this podcast.
They think Lundstrom. He's a lovely player, but is he? He's playing. He could blow League One apart, kind of thing. But
Lundstrom was sorry, Harry. Lundstrom, I thought, was their best player at Portman Road last season, and he was taken off for about 65, 70 minutes. I'm kind of thinking, well, what's he done wrong?
Richard, can I come in and say something totally alarming on what Harry has just said? Right, he's totally right about Duffy because he's a number 10, but he never plays in the number 10 position down the middle, and he's really, really smart. So Sheffield United West Brom last week, Adarabioyo right back with Dwight Gale in front of him. Okay, what does Duffy do? Straight over to the side and does all his damage that side. So you're looking at a number 10 who likes to exploit weak fullbacks, and will say no more.
He'll just be keep swapping sides any time.
Well, but Rich, what he'll do, he'll dribble the ball, and either Stevens on the left will just run past him with no intention of taking the ball. He's just going to take the defender, and Duffy's then going to go inside with McGoldrick or whoever. Or I don't know what Harry thinks with regards Freeman, or who's the other right wing back? Harry
Baldock.
Baldock. Thank you, Baldock.
Yeah.
But very clever, and I think he's pretty much got free roll. Can go wherever he likes. And Rich, this is why I said your better chance of beating Sheffield United is if they go with Plan A, because look at the indulgence they've got. You've got a piss-taker playmaker, you've got David McGoldrick, and you've got a number 10 who's allowed to do what the hell he likes. So that's 3 players. If they're on it, we're getting battered. But if they're not on it, that's where you make up your numbers. Sorry, Rich.
So do you counter that? Do we soak up pressure and then break quickly? Is that what you're saying, or?
Well, that's what West Brom managed to do in the second half. And look, I know we're talking about Gareth Barry, Jake Livermore, and Matt Phillips, who are excellent players, but they were very good at clogging up the midfield, and they just went. And I know again you're playing the ball to Harvey Barnes and Dwight Gale, not Freddie Sears and Gwyn Edwards or Jack Lancaster. Yeah. But they pile all these guys forward. You have a clever player. You stop them. Excuse it have been good in this game. And you just go direct, and they will give you a chance. It's just how many they score up the other end.
Harry, what you're thinking? You're mulling away there.
No, brain on fire again. This is brilliant. It's Duffy. It's frightening the way you describe Duffy, because he can start holding players out of position, as well as overloading fullbacks, which is not what we want. It really, and that comment about them wanting to come on to us echoes the fact that when they talk about their defenders, they say individually they're all really brilliant, and then they kind of go, "Oh, he's doing a great job. He's doing a great job." But why are we still conceding so many goals? Because of the model of play that they have means that they're vulnerable to being hit. So you don't need just to be West Brom. We can score against them. I'd be confident about that. Probably not as many as West. We obviously wouldn't have West Brom's threat, but that it is a defence that can be got at. So the idea of them doing what they did against Reading, starting with Washington and keeping it simple and tight, and then bringing on Sharp at the end, that we don't like. But if they go with Plan A and come after us, that we do have a counterpunch.
And Richard, here is the complete elephant in the room: Boxing Day, Sheffield United versus Derby at Bramall Lane. And Wilder has clearly taken out Duffy before they've played Leeds and before they've played West Brom. So
and we talked about that on Sunday, didn't we? We talked about teams maybe underestimating us for a start, but also thinking there's a bigger game in 2 days' time.
Wilder has got big, hairy Yorkshire bulls. He won't be scared of taking out his best number 10 and saying, "Look, we'll beat Ipswich, and then I'll use Duffy against Derby." And you know what the turnaround's like. They're barely even going to train in between the.
Yeah.
You know, if they have the day off on Sunday, they'll come in on Christmas morning or whenever we are 23rd or 2 days. So I just don't know whether we're going to see the plan B or the plan A. All the evidence of the last 2 months says that the teams are going to come out on Tuesday and you're going to see Washington and Lundstrom, not Duffy and Sharp.
Yeah.
Can I just understand? We haven't talked about systems yet. We usually have and I'm just trying to figure out whether is it a 4 at the back for a start?
No,
or is it 3?
No.
It's a 3-5-2.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that. Quick thing. Final word on Duffy. Let's go back to Bielsa. This is what Leeds did a couple of weeks ago. This is how they killed Sheffield United. Leeds pressed us high, meaning that none of our defenders could get up the pitch and overlap. We'll come on to the defence now. With the job Leeds did, man marking Duffy and the way they took our defenders out, they got it tactically spot on. So that just echoes.
But they needed a really dodgy goal at the end to win it, didn't they? But at least they nullified him.
Yeah.
So it's a 5-man midfield, yeah.
So it's a 3. I call it a 3-4-1-2 with Duffy playing in behind the 2. Yeah, or a free roll, so a 3-4 Duffy 2, if that makes sense.
Okay.
That's how they operate. But the defence, and this is now, let me. This is fun. The easy bit of the defence, in a way, is the guy sitting in the middle, which is John Egan. Because he's
the only one who doesn't cross halfway.
Yeah, exactly. He just sits there. And Egan, what do we know? Yeah, we'll start with Egan, and we'll filter our way out, and we'll come back to Henderson at the end. A safety-first defender who clears his lines. He has the majority of taller strikers in his pocket. We have come across this type of man before on this programme. A proper warrior, absolutely solid. He struggles against quality, pacey forwards. You could write this for, there's about 15 centre-backs scuttling around in the Championship. You'd love to put them all in one team and just watch what happens. It would be bizarre. So a good stopper, but he's too negative. He'll roll a 5-yard pass to somebody else. Though a few of them did say against the weaker teams, against Bolton, there was a little touch of the imagination about him. He was coming out with it, but essentially he's
Harry,
quite safe.
Norwood is quite happy to come stand 2 yards beside him and take the ball off him.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Plan B, just a quick mention of a former town player, Richard Stearman, because he is, even though he may not play, if he was to appear, Sheffield United fans would be very happy. They like him. They feel it's a pity with Egan there, Stearman isn't getting a look in, and if they ever switch to a back four with him, those two together would be fantastic.
That's an interesting evolution in moving into centre back. I always saw him as a right back bombing on, but he's obviously got height. Smart footballer as well.
Yeah, good in the air on the ball. They've better natural footballer obviously than Egan. This is obvious stuff. Rock solid replacement basically. Worth mentioning him though, but they do miss if he comes on. They miss Egan's headers and crunching tackles. Which is what we like. So now the interesting bit for me is the two centre backs either side of Egan, because these guys don't sit. These guys go. They, in a way, I think they're more of an attacking threat than the actual wing backs themselves. You've got Chris Basham on the right, and you've got Jack O'Connell on the left. Basham, they love.
Basham is hilarious, Harry. He's funnier than Hefele for Forest.
Forest now, yeah. I've got a great line here. Sometimes he's a bomb scare, and then sometimes and it gets better. Sometimes we see Basham Bauer.
I saw Basham do a step over against West Brom.
Wow. That's
talking about Hefele,
from a centre back. Go on.
I just want to say, you were at the Derby Forest game. Hefele rugby tackled someone to the. Was it Marriott? He rugby tackled Marriott.
You guys had Forest so right. I've not seen more bastardery in a team in the Championship, which probably means get your money on them if they get in the playoffs. Yeah.
Yep.
They'll bastard their way through that. Sorry.
Set off.
Three at the back, Sheffield United.
Yeah, O'Connell.
So Basham they absolutely love all action, athletic, making tackles and getting up and down. The first man name on my t-shirt, they just adore him. He's a massive at both ends of the pitch. He drives us forward and wins 50-50s all over the place, making clearances and tackles. Sometimes though, when he gets into the danger zone, a little bit of nosebleed, they say, never quite sure. Sometimes he'll play it safe. Instead of actually going forward and then actually going again, doing a George Weah and just kind of marauding all the way up the field.
Harry, he's not Adam Webster. You have to call his bluff. This is a guy being asked to do this who is trying very manfully, but it's just the sheer theatre of all of it. Seeing this big dude just bombing up the pitch. If you call his bluff, you can exploit him. But you've got to concentrate. And Rich, the preview show last year, we had Mark the Blade on. Said this, and then what happens in the game? Basham up the pitch, fleck cross, and he heads it in. He told us exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah. Tell us about Jack O'Connell.
O'Connell on the other side, he's on the left side, steady defender. He's defensively rock solid. He still gets up the field, overlaps, beats his man, whips quality balls into the... this is a lovely line, actually. And a centre-half who overlaps, beats his man and whips quality balls into the box. If that doesn't sum up our current team, I don't know what does, because that's what they do. The attacking threat can often, if it's not coming from the midfield, it will come from deep, and they can overload. They can create the overloads. They can unbalance defenses by doing this. They did say he struggled at times with West Brom's pace and running. I don't know, Ben, if you have any view on that, but they felt that against the really high quality players, opponents, that he summed up the difference between United and the real big hitters in the league. He's good, but so good as far as he goes. They really like him, but he's consistent. But he doesn't have the madness of Basham, but also he doesn't necessarily have the quality that would necessarily sort of take you up a level. Maybe you don't need that, but reliable would be the word I'd use. I don't know if you. Anything to add on that?
I would agree. I think O'Connell could play where Egan is playing, and all I would say on what you said about West Brom is it's not the best barometer of judging a defender, because there's going to be all the Leeds defenders were looking bewildered whilst West Brom ran off to celebrate, and there's going to be a lot of teams that get caught out by their red arrows style attack. Rich.
Yeah.
We've got 3 centre backs who like to maraud, and we got 2 wing backs as well. Then who like to maraud as well.
Now, shoot me down in flames here, Ben. The problem I have with the wing backs is that they seem to be full backs, and they're not necessarily, in 2 cases anyway, they're not necessarily. The centre-backs seem to be a bigger threat. Enda Stevens, who we remember he played for Portsmouth against us in the Cup game a few years ago, left-sided, one of our better players sticking to his defensive duties. He gets forward, but his crossing isn't great. He'll often pull back soft and weak crosses. Very, very left-footed, which actually they say makes him actually quite easy to defend against. You just keep showing him onto his right, and they compare their own right-footed abilities with Enda Stevens's, and Stevens comes out badly, because it diminishes his attacking threat. Again, one of these players good up to the level what Ben talked about earlier in the show, good up to championship level, but not necessarily the really lethal threat. Given where they are sitting in the table at the moment. He has the physicality to get up and down all game, but is unsure at times what to do. So that's Stevens. Now, on the right side, you've got 2 players. You've got Baldock and Freeman. And Freeman suits Wilder's style of football more than Baldock. He's more attacking, but just as equally, he's more vulnerable defensively. And he's been hammered recently he's been fingered for some of the actual it's for specific goals that they have conceded, where he's let his man run inside him. One of them said Baldock has been pretty invisible since coming back, but at least he's not conceding a goal every game like Freeman. He lets the ball run past him to attackers who are in on goal. They think it's a dip in form, because they know he's capable of so much more. And he, shots from his side and crosses from his side are costing us goals. Baldock, however, instead is an out-and-out right back, a good, honest pro, solid defensively, but he simply going forward, he offers nothing. There's no end product with him. But he, as you say, he'll do this mirage of an overlapping run. And the trick is, you can't really let him go, but you can kind of factor in that maybe he may not be the big threat, compared to Duffy, who's kind of, who could cause the problem. He isn't a bad player, but he is a full back. He has a bit of pace and a few tricks, but he can keep a shot down, but he doesn't cross. And I don't know why. And one other point they made about Baldock, and I don't know if you picked up on this, Ben, he can end up drifting inside in the final third, which often then means they can get done on the counter. So he's a wing back who goes forward, and because he's out of his comfort zone, he'll chase the play in and get dragged in towards the number 10 position, leaving a wide open space at the back that then has to be covered elsewhere. So I'm more worried about the centre backs than I actually am about the wing backs.
And going back to what we said at the start, Ender Stevens and Baldock are League One players or coming through, isn't it? Baldock's MK Dons, and you mentioned Ender Stevens Portsmouth. So again, maybe Ben, would you suggest that those would be viable transfer targets for Wilder if he gets money in the window?
Yeah. Lot to unpack in what Harry said, as always.
I just sit back and watch this.
I get the impression that again, I used the term earlier, nuisance over threat. I bet they're asked, and you summed it up, Rich. They're both League One players. I bet they're asked, look, you have to run 12 kilometres a game. You need to be a nuisance up there. But you're totally right. And if you saw that Amazon thing with Man City, and you see Pep Guardiola telling Kyle Walker, no, the danger's not there now. The danger's come inside. And so I agree the centre halves are a bigger danger because it's more unpredictable and they're in a more dangerous area. I just genuinely think those wing backs are told, up and down, don't lose your guy and be a nuisance up front. And totally, if Ender Stevens could cross, they would have been 3-0 up against West Brom in the game I saw last week. Because, a lot of the chances, Duffy's played him in and Dave would say he's got no end product. I can't do Dave's accent without slipping into Mockney. What I will say is this comes completely full circle to the very first thing we said about Wilder, because we saw the guy that Wilder needs playing for Wigan last week, and he belongs to Chelsea. That level of player, Reece James, would be perfect because, if he's playing for Sheffield United, he'd get combined goals and assists would be over 10, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
From
a great shout.
But where can you buy? I know we were very lucky with someone like Jamie Clapham, who was, who could run, be a middle distance runner and then could cross and take free kicks and stuff. But this is Sheffield United. They were promoted last season and all their money was raised by selling a guy to Bournemouth for 5 million. There's only so much Wilder can do. In an ideal world, you have, Rich, you have a player who can join in the attacks. But yes, I think the main threat. Watch Stevens now go down the left and play a pinpoint perfect cross on Saturday. But I sensed a bit of a lack of quality, and but I love it because the philosophy comes first. He doesn't say boot it down the line. He says no, get down there and try your best to do it.
Try your hardest. Let's
go on, son.
Let's just. I'm just looking at the clock, guys. We could be here all Christmas if we wanted to. It's really great stuff. I just wanted to talk about the keepers quickly, Harry, and then we'll kind of do a bit of a summing up.
Briefly on Dean Henderson. He played for Paul Hurst Shrewsbury last season, and he's on loan. That is, he's on loan from Manchester United. Quite young. This is his first season in the Championship. They like him. They'd buy him in the morning if they could. There was one screw up against Leeds between him and John Egan. I think that was that. But that is the exception. And one of them said, criticise Henderson, not for me. They love his agility, and they love the way. I always think the way you say keepers are good shot stoppers, the way defenders are good tacklers, if you know what I mean. That's their bread and butter. But the way when a centre-half sometimes, like Tyrone Mings used to do, he'd put in a brilliant tackle and just flatten the opponent legally. Sometimes a good shot stopper can actually get the crowd excited just as equally. And I think Henderson falls into this category. He can be quite theatrical in his saves. So, not just one for the camera, but actually really good saves as well. I don't know. One of them, I'd be interested, Ben, if you can just spool back in your memory on this one. They were saying that he if you have to see his saves live because they look fantastic, even better than on the camera. So it's just reflect on that for a second. But they really really love him. He's also got a great rapport with the fans. He's making saves he shouldn't be making. Small minor criticisms, lack of experience, possibly still claiming crosses and controlling his area is work in progress. But I'm not sure it's necessarily, sort of Flynn Downs drilling corners into the 6-yard box territory. That's the only thing I'd say. But Henderson generally, he's fun. He's not like, what was it, old Nyland, the Aston Villa keeper who he loved. We're not in that level, I'm afraid. Yeah.
He was in nets for the Leeds game though, yeah. So it was his mistake for the.
It was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That was Rich. That was an outlier though.
Yeah.
Agree with Harry. Henderson's very good. First thing I ever saw him do was save a penalty at Wembley for Paul Hurst's Rotherham.
Yeah.
Did see him make one mistake in the games. Stoke scored a free kick and Joe Allen did him. He faked to cross it, curled it round the wall, and but I think he's very good.
Can I just get a thought? It's the second season in a row. I'm off the top of my head. It might be more where they've had a loney goalkeeper. Have we got any thoughts on
Blackman.
that? It was Blackman last season, wasn't it?
I like it as a model. If you remember when Newcastle were de rigueur and doing the Moneyball thing, and the car bloke was signing all the guys for nothing from France. They said people undervalue goalkeepers, and I like the idea of. And look where Sam Johnston's gone. He went on loan to Villa and he's probably got a nice cushy contract there at West Brom and a big transfer fee there. I like it as a model, and perhaps we might need to do it in the next couple of seasons, possibly.
Maybe we'll see. Gentlemen, that was again. I have the easiest job of all of the Blue Monday team. I just sit here and listen to the guys who know their stuff talk about that. It was really fascinating. We've got one more bit on Sheffield United before we do the questions, which is our mate Daryl does a combined 11 for us. So I'd be interested to get your thoughts on this. Am I right? He's got Richard Wright in goal. Have I missed that one? Was there a loan spell there?
There must have been a loan spell. I didn't double check that one. I double checked a few of the others, but because goalies in this game can be very hard to find. So I kind of go, well, if Richard Wright was there, he might have visited Sheffield.
I don't want to doubt Daryl's credibility.
We'll have it.
Maybe when he was at Everton. Lee Tibbett is the left back. Is that a name that rings any bells for you guys?
I think it's a type of. It's Les Tibbett. I think he played against Cardiff in the first round of the 1978 FA Cup game. On the third round of the FA Cup, the first game of our FA Cup winning run, and he was at the club from 73 to 79. I think then he switched.
Bristol Rovers.
I don't think he played. I don't know if he played in the Rovers game. I know he played in the Cardiff game because I have the program. And I looked. Sorry. That came. That was checked. So he's of that era. So, but I mean, he didn't obviously, given who else was there at the time. I think he might have played for Wales a few times as well. So he was Welsh in background, but he was a squad player in the club then. More interestingly, on the right, do you want to run through the team?
Well,
run through the team.
I could have said the two centre backs are interesting. The next centre back is Jay McEverley, who I probably would have put at left back actually, because he's got Higginbotham and Carter Vickers don't even make the team. So there's thoughts there. The other centre back from the Battle of West Brom, George Santos. Makes it, and our friend from last week
got some play this couple of weeks.
Yeah, is it the anniversary of it or something?
It's 20 years ago.
That was funny. We mentioned him last week against Sheffield United, I think, in the FA Cup. Gus Uhlenbeek makes a return to cross the ball over the stand.
Absolutely, yeah. The midfield, go for the midfield. The midfield is proper ropey. It's a 4-3-3. Yeah.
Alan Quinn, who's solid.
Alan Quinn is solid. Then it gets interesting.
Yeah, Simon Walton, who's good for a red card.
Yeah.
Billy Clark as a midfielder, I think, is pushing it a little bit.
It is, yeah. We've got no midfield, basically. These teams, I describe them, I love Daryl's teams. There's a touch of Paul Jewell about them in that they're completely unbalanced and you've no control over who you're going to bring in. It's probably, it's kind of at one stage it's bewilderingly exciting, and then at the other side it's kind of a nervous breakdown country. So, as I say, you've got Quinn, Walton and Billy Clark, possibly playmaker or who knows, sitting in there. And then the strikers.
Yeah, so the strikers, we've got Marcus Bent, David McGoldrick, and David Johnson had a loan spell there at one point, presumably from Forest.
Yeah.
So that is, I mean,
very
just
good.
Bypass the midfield.
Yeah.
Just get along.
Get the ball into the final third, Rich. You're
Absolutely
fine.
right.
Yeah.
So there you go. So who
great
was the
stuff. I
team
mean,
where he gave us a 5-4-1? You need to play that team against that team. That would be interesting.
Right.
Attack v defence.
It'd be 5-0-5. There'd be nothing in the midfield. Would be sort of a wasteland. It'd be so funny.
Well, we'll get Daryl to tweet that out. Thank you again, Daryl, for that.
Yeah.
We've probably missed a really obvious one. We missed some obvious ones for Wigan, I think, but that's part of the fun. So thank you, Daryl, for that. Yeah. Any thoughts on that one, Ben?
No, I was just hoping he'd have Jono up front. So big tick from me, Daryl. Thank you as always for your involvement.
Let's do some questions, shall we? I'll start with this one from Steve Thompson. I don't know if this is consumer advice or something about Sheffield United in Yorkshire. Should you have Yorkshire puddings with Christmas dinner?
Yes.
Oh, yes. No question.
What? Yep. Right, I'm in the minority. I'm going to be quiet. Craig. Yeah, sorry. I'll let that one linger a little bit, shall I?
Absolutely.
I think I'm hoping that the rest of the podcast land will query Yorkshire puddings at Christmas dinner. But anyhow.
It's great having Ben on the show. This is brilliant.
Oh yeah, you've got allies now. It's Nerdfest, isn't it? Bloody hell. Craig, Fim75. What is happening with Harrison? Seemingly the perfect fit for Paul Lambert's formation style. Has a decent 10 to 15 minute cameo at Stoke. Pushing it a little bit. And then Lambert confirmed his omission from the X squad wasn't related to fitness. Got to be a better option than Roberts, surely. Do we know? Is there anything we're missing there about Harrison? Either of you guys? You've got both.
I haven't heard the conference today, so I'll push that one back to you guys.
I don't think there was anything majorly. There wasn't any detail on it. I don't know. If it's not fitness, it's got to be. It's either quality or the balance of the team, and he feels that Roberts can do a better job up there, sort of bouncing against the defenders and being a nuisance, as Ben said brilliantly. It's more that than necessarily a threat. Yeah. And maybe
that's all
coming
you get,
on.
Though. You just get the nuisance fact. You don't get.
Yeah.
So we'll see about that one. On the strikers as well, the Barley Weasel. Oh, go on.
No, just a quick thing. With so many games coming up in such a short space of time, I think we'll flush out his real thoughts on Harrison. Because if you reckon, with so many games coming, how much he features will actually calibrate just where he sits in the wider scheme of things. My sense is, if we get some experienced strikers in, Harrison would be a plausible bench option, but obviously not at the moment for whatever reason. To come in regularly, we'll get a better, more accurate sense of that over the next 2 weeks. I would have thought.
Well, it's a perfect segue to the question from the Barley Weasel. Yeah. Just to say again, do you think we'll find a use for Caden Jackson, or is he destined to go in January? What do you think on Jackson, Ben?
I will say, I don't. If I'm a striker, I want to play against Lynch and Leistner for QPR next week. If I was Jackson. But what do you think, Rich?
I'm not sure that this kind of knocking it into the channels for him to run onto it works. I think we just need to hold on for January and get better strikers. And I think Jackson's a good option if the worst were to happen, we were to go down. I guess he's got a handful of goals, isn't he? 3 or 4 goals, so he can do it. But I just don't think we play to his strengths, and I don't think he's up to the standard yet. Similar to Roberts, probably a bit better than Roberts, but still finding his way.
Sure against Accrington, though, won't he?
Kind of hope.
And that's the rules, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, if McGoldrick's going to score on Saturday, then
exactly. There you go.
There's the theory.
Our blistering cup run to the 4th round.
Yeah, better than anything that Mick McCarthy managed, though, eh? Mrs. Nuts.
What is this strange land?
Yes, goodness me, the 4th round draw. What do we do with ourselves? Chris Wilder asked his team if they are contenders or pretenders. What do we think? Let's have one from each of you on that one. Contenders or pretenders?
A very admirable, because I love them, but pretenders.
Harry?
Ditto. Absolutely. Admirable pretenders. Look at that top 8.
I was going to say you gave us your list last week, and and Norwich weren't part of that list.
No, I don't see it.
Mullet, our mate Mullet. Does Lambert have it in him to pick a rotated team for the hardest game over this period? QPR currently 6th in the form table over the last 10 games. Should that be the write-off game? The game we write off, for 0 points and hope to take something from the others. We'll come back and talk a little about these games. But do you think we'll rotate, or do you think Lambert will keep going full guns blazing as he has so far?
I don't profess to be as intelligent as Muller. I'm not, but I don't think QPR is the hardest game of the three. So I think there's a flaw in the question. That's the one.
I think Borough's the toughest, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think Borough's the
shocking
toughest.
record up there.
Yeah, QPR have been in excellent form if you remove the first 4 games of the season. You know, their stats are absolutely brilliant. But that's where I was seeing some points. But in the spirit of the question, without disagreeing with its content, no, I think he's going to go full pelt at the Sheffield United game, try and get something, and then see where he is after that.
Yeah,
Harry?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think QPR are so classically mid-table. They beat Borough. They've also recently beaten Aston Villa, but then they've lost to Hull. But give them if you'd offered them mid-table 4 or 5 months ago, they'd have hugged you for it. Thank you very much. Yeah. Given the financial stuff that they're washing through the system this year, stability and a mid-table finish. Thank you. We'll have that. So no, and they, as we were saying, Lynch and Leistner. I'd fancy our chances against that back pairing, definitely. Wells though has come into form. Anyway, yeah.
And McLaren, much maligned, but actually probably a decent appointment in the end, given where they were destined or they were predicted for relegation this season. So,
Rich, where would we be if we'd hired him in the summer?
I would have had him. I would have had McLaren. I'm not going to lie. I would have been happy with that. So I don't think we'd be bottom. We may or may not be that far above. But Condor, we've talked about Bart and loanees. So let's just quickly drill into this. I love Bart, but do we need a third keeper in, possibly on loan, or does Harry Wright fill that void? And then Darryl, lads, should we cash in? Thoughts on a third keeper, or thoughts on this possible better keeper on loan? I guess it's not something we need to do something about until the summer, perhaps. But in terms of January, do we need someone better on loan, or can Harry Wright do that? Push Gherkin and Bart, Harry?
If you'd asked me 5 months ago, I would have said you need your head examined if we needed to strengthen our goalkeeping position. Now I just don't know. I really don't. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody did come in. I think it's unlikely. I think he'll work with what he's got and work on building their confidence, because Dean, apart from that rick against Queen's Park Rangers, he might actually want to go out and prove a point against them, play out of his skin on Boxing Day. But I would be very surprised if somebody did come in, but I wouldn't be shocked. I'm sort of fudging the answer. It was unthinkable, as I say, over the summer that we would have needed to strengthen the keepers department, but it seems that they have both gone backwards. Yeah.
Gherkin's okay, isn't he, Ben?
Yeah. I mean, every week we get the question on the flagship: where do you strengthen? If it's got to be number one priority, has got to be a forward of some experience, way over. And I think the way Lambert has spoken, at Forest, you both at Forest, weren't you? I think Harry Wright was really involved in all the warm-up stuff, doing all the shooting drills and stuff. So those are his 3 goalies, and we just got to hope that between Bart and Gherkin, there's a passable performance in goal between now and the rest of the season. But as Harry keeps saying, sorry Rich, I know it's a long answer, as Harry keeps saying, all the terror comes from what's going on in front of him, and if that stabilises, I think the situation in goal works out better.
Well, let's just talk about that then, and another player that might be off in January. Kenlock was on the bench last week. Do you think he'll be introduced over the Christmas period, as the club seems to be happy for Knudsen to go in January? That's from Brad Archer.
Well, assuming that Brad is right, that they are happy with Knudsen, knowing what we know about Knudsen's temperament, he will be saying, look, if I go, I'm going to be professional until the last. I want to play every minute, and then you sell me. So I don't think I think we see Kenlock if and when Knudsen goes, but I think knowing what I think we know about Knudsen's psychology, that he'll have that kind of man-to-man alpha male chat with Paul Lambert, saying, look, I'll do whatever you want me to do, but don't take me out of the team. If you sell me, we shake hands and off we go.
Harry?
Yeah, I totally agree with Ben on that. I'd love to see Kenlock come in. I've always rated him. I think he has an attacking side to his game. He can maraud up the left. But I agree with Ben. For what it's worth, I was sitting on the touchline very close to really right beside. It was when we were in row one. I couldn't have been any closer to the halfway line. I got in at Stoke, and I got to watch him close up. And I must confess, I didn't. I just sensed a man playing the percentages, and that's very cynical. But he was very professional, did everything he needed to do. But I just felt he was managing himself very carefully through that game. But as I say, I apologise if I'm wrong on that. But that's how
Harry,
that's how I read
I
it.
saw exactly the same. I had the mirror image with Derrickware at Forest, and I felt the same thing.
Yeah. Let's see.
I'd have no problem seeing Kenlock over Christmas. I'll just lob that in there. But we shall see. Dimitris, this is one for you, Harry, I think. You usually find a Where Are They Now player on the opposing team. I was wondering if you could try this on the current ITFC squad. Would we have one? We're kind of lacking those kind of championship names, aren't we? That
Didn't Freddie Sears score very, very early in his career and make some headlines for
West Ham? He was 16-year-old goal scorer for West Ham, wasn't he? I think.
He was. That's
that
right.
He
blasted onto the scene, and then he went, and then he because I have a couple of West Ham friends, and they speak with great affection about him. I'm just looking down the squad list here now that the question's been asked. I mean, some people I can't say. There's Emma Hughes. I'm just looking to see the list of players who Tom, who's the number 24. Tom Adeyemi, he's there.
Who?
Tom Adeyemi, he's in the squad, so there's possibly him. I don't know. It's a good question. I have to say they'd be the two if I was going into the Ipswich forum to say, well, what's the who is there, who isn't there? They'd be the kind of they've got them. That's they'd be the two names that would leap out for me. Yeah.
We've got some really great questions here, guys. Thank you so much for all of these. A lot of them are stuff that we've dealt with on Sunday, or a few old chestnuts. So let's end on a good one from Tim Pashley, our mate Tim Pashley. Do you think Nolan can deliver this Christmas, or should I rely on Rudolph? I'm starting to get. I'm on in the pro Nolan camp, if such a camp exists. Ben, what's your thoughts on Nolan? Is he going to grow into a regular starter for us, or is he another stopgap maybe to January?
I am also #pro Nolo, as Dave would
Team
say.
Nolo.
As Dave would say, he's fundamentally sound and neat and tidy, and I think he can do something. So pending us getting Riquelme or someone in the January transfer window.
Lundstrom. I'll have Lundstrom. Let's get him.
There you go. Yeah.
Harry, have you seen Nolan recently?
No, I've seen. No, I saw him.
Stoke.
Yes, he's. Where would I'd be interested to see.
I saw him in Poundland. He was working at Tills.
Who knows what the future holds? No, I think with Nolan, I'd love to see him with a really decent striker to play to act as a foil, because we just haven't seen that all season. I think that will answer the question for me.
Yeah, I don't think he's the number 10 that Hurst is playing him, definitely. And in terms of your question, Tim, if you're looking for someone to deliver, I guess it depends what if you're looking to deliver Christmas presents, I would probably rely on Rudolph. There you go. I'm giving
Rich,
the
question. You got to just get Amazon Prime for 1 month.
Amazon Prime, brilliant. Yeah, the free trial was probably a bit too late with people hearing this now, but yeah, maybe next year. Let's just quickly, before we close out, let's just talk QPR, Borough, Millwall. Are we Sheffield United? Are we thinking draw or defeat? If we're being bluntly honest, what do we think points tally wise of those 4 games?
I agree with Dave on the flagship. If we were to get 3 points from those 3 games and go to January, and preferably beat one of them, I would happily take, lose to the Blades, beat Rangers, and lose to, given what's come before. It'd just be good for us to get another win. And look, I can hopefully see one coming against Millwall. And then if you look at January, Rich, Millwall, Accrington, Blackburn away, then Rotherham at home, and the club, well done. Ticket
12
thing
quid
again,
or whatever, isn't it? Yeah.
Get people in the ground for Rotherham.
Half price.
You can get some results. Let's just see this out without it becoming too horrible. Let's be competitive in all the games, and if there was a win in any of those 3 games, I'd be well chuffed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Harry?
Yeah, I'd agree. I was just looking at down there. I did sort of scruffy calculations. A point from Sheffield, possibly a point from Queen's Park Rangers, lose at Borough, and beat Millwall. That's 5. it's that differential, just keeping us in touch, keeping us within 5 or 6 points of danger of safety, I should say, and then let's see what cavalry comes over the hill. Marcus.
And Richard, just very quickly, you guys were bang on last week about how Harry said the elasticity of the table, given the streaks that Norwich and Leeds, and they're going to pull West Brom, Forest, Derby, whoever with them, and we had it brought up just how the bottom six stink completely terribly. How Rotherham can win 1 in 13 and still be not near. How Hull can be good for 6 weeks and zoom off into the distance. It's so bad down there. You know, 15 points in 8 games for Hull, and they almost look home and hosed, don't they?
Yeah. And I think this weekend certainly there are some top teams playing bottom teams, and I think during Christmas there are bottom teams playing bottom teams. So there is only a certain number of points that the teams around us can actually get over Christmas as well. And
Rich, Mick Mills, who's ever wise, says when crap teams play each other, you want them to draw so only 2 of the 3 points go into the ether. While we've been so terrible, it has worked out all right, because only 2 points have ever. All these, Reading and Rotherham drawing, and look at who scored. Look at the colour of the bottom of the league. It's all grey and red, or whatever colour they use for draws and
on
draws and defeats. Nobody is winning, and we could be miles adrift if it hadn't been so terrible down there. So. There is still hope, but I know it's going to get brought up. I have been watching that Sunderland documentary.
I don't want to. It was Adam, wasn't it?
Parallels are horribly, uncannily similar. So let's just have that as a warning. Yeah,
absolutely right. Well, gentlemen, thank you again. That was really great fun. A long one as well. So hopefully, plenty of Christmas enjoyment for everyone there. Ben, do you want to quickly do your plugs, your Twitter, and the Sunday show?
So at Benjamin Bloom on Twitter, going to be at the Ipswich game. Also going to be at Villa Leeds on Sunday, which should be a brilliant game. Really tasty. Really looking forward to seeing Pablo Hernandez as well, because he is playing beautifully. Obviously, Rich normally does this, but follow the channel at Blue Monday ITFC support. And while I'm on here, I can give the commendation for this absolutely brilliant show that you two guys do every week, which has been so popular all season. And of course, February the 16th, Blue Monday live at the Curve Bar, eventbrite.co.uk. This is an easy Christmas present. You could do this at 11:50 on Christmas Eve, bang it in, print off the ticket, stick it in an envelope. Although I think our audience is 99.2% male, and you'd be looking at probably the wife in the relationship to buy that for the husband. But buy it for your wife. Take her along.
Valentine's
take it to the max.
Day weekend, isn't it?
Blue Monday live, Rich. Eventbrite.co.uk.
We shall all be there, and Harry will be there as well. Harry, do you want to do your plugs? Also, this is probably the last time we'll be on a show before Christmas. So, any Christmas messages for anyone as well?
Just keep the faith, everybody. Enjoy the Christmas program, whatever comes. There's a series of interesting games from which we can glean some points, and I just wish everybody the happiest of Christmases. My Twitter handle at Harry from Bath. The preview notes will go up on TWTD for Sheffield for the Sheffield game on Friday lunchtime, and the ones for the QPR Boxing Day game will be up on Christmas Eve. We always get them up on Christmas
Eve. They'll be out in hardback edition by Tuesday
for £10.99 from all good bookshops.
Rich, I need you to pray for me, because I'm going to the QPR game, but I'm actually going with some character called Benjamin Bloom. I'm dreading it.
Man.
God knows what that's
apparently he
like.
just doesn't shut up, Harry.
If the YouTube comments are anything to go by, he's an absolute arsehole. So.
That's the nicest of what I've heard, Ben.
Right.
Christmas cheer, eh?
Harry, thank you for that. Thank you for and all your hard work as usual. And thank you for a great half season so far as well. It's been great fun for me. Thank you for all the tweets and all the questions we get week after week. Have a really great Christmas, everyone. Look after yourselves, look after each other, and who knows, come January, maybe things will look much nicer, and we'll be back for Accrington, won't we? And maybe a cup run. So Merry Christmas, and here's to a great 2019 as well.